Right then, let's talk about Merlin and their lack of accessibility. First of all, this is not really a video I wanted to make. I don't think I've ever made a sit-down video like this before. I've got the laptop in front of me and the phone just perched upon the laptop screen, which is why the angle is what it is. This is going to be a raw, uncut, quick video on what I currently believe are the facts and what's gone wrong. First of all, let's not keep harassing Nimbus Disability over Merlin's mistake. Nimbus, my understanding, is they've split one symbol into two. So the symbol that originally got you a ride access pass for Merlin Entertainments, who I think is now just Merlin, has now been split into two. One of them is difficulty with crowds and one is difficulty with standing. The original symbol incorporated both, but Nimbus have said that they have split the symbol to make it easier for venues to offer help where needed. Now, let's be perfectly clear. If you had that symbol of the original symbol on your access card, I firmly believe you will still at least have the difficulty with crowd symbol. And according to Nimbus themselves, that difficulty with crowd symbol should allow you access to queues. I'm just loading up the Nimbus website now because I can then read word for word. Let's have a look, where is it? You'd think I'd be more organised, but to be honest, I just suddenly thought I should make this video. So therefore I'm not. Right, so at the minute I've gone on to accesscard.online, clicked on got a question. There's one here that says Merlin Ride Access. Information on Merlin Ride Access. Changes to symbols and RAP eligibility I've just clicked on. Right, here we go. So I've gone on the Nimbus website. That's all I've done. I've literally Googled Nimbus card. Alright. And then I've clicked on their website, which is accesscard.online. And then I've clicked on got a question, which is right near the top of the page. And then it's got a category section. And in the bottom right hand corner it says Merlin Ride Access, information on how to get and use a Merlin Ride Access, 2 articles. So I've clicked on that and there's one that says changes to your symbols and Merlin RAP eligibility. Right, now the access card's own website now says changes to your symbols and Merlin RAP eligibility. Why have the symbols changed and what do they mean? And I'm reading this word for word off of the access card by Nimbus Disability. I'm reading it off their own website. We want to ensure that venues understand exactly what you need by distinguishing between a physical need to sit down and a sensory need to avoid crowds. Venues can offer more personalised accommodations. It moves away from a one-size-fits-all approach to queuing. Now, for me personally, I don't agree with how Nimbus have done it because I wasn't aware of it until I went to renew my access card. For full disclosure, I renewed my access card the middle of January because it was due for renewal in the middle of March. And because of the new booking system, I could only book while my card was valid. So I went online and I discovered that I could renew my access card up to 3 months in advance. So exactly 3 months in advance, I updated my access card. And I'll talk more about that and how to do that in a minute. Right, continuing on reading on their website. After what I've just said, it now says, here is a little more about the new symbols. Difficulty standing. Symbol A, a seated figure, which means the symbol is allocated to applicants whose mobility impairment makes standing or prolonged periods difficult or impossible. Now, Merlin is saying if you've got this new symbol, then you can have ride access. But what Merlin is saying now is if you have the symbol I'm about to read out, you don't qualify for ride access. However, listen to what Nimbus say on their own access card website with the difficulty with crowd symbol, okay? It says, difficulty with crowds, symbol. A group of figures, what it means. This symbol is allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. Okay, so you heard that. It says this symbol is allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. It clearly says queues. And then it says often due to neurodivergence, anxiety and other non-physical conditions. Now this is a key thing for me here, okay? So everybody that had the original symbol that's now been split by Nimbus, wrongly or rightly, whether it's been split correctly or incorrectly, you will probably have, I would imagine, difficulty with crowd symbol. And according to their own website, not Merlin, according to Nimbus Disability, that symbol means, right, that you have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. It says or queues. Therefore, it includes queues, right? This is where Merlin have royally screwed up. Merlin is saying if you have this difficulty with crowd symbol, you do not qualify for a ride access pass and you have to use the normal queue line. You have to be in the crowded situation with everybody else in the queue. You have to be penned in to the queue. You have to cope in the queue. Right? For people that don't use ride access passes that are watching this video might go, well, you know, everybody else can if they can stand up, you know, why can't the queue? The reality is a lot of people can't. You might see someone in a ride access queue and think, well, why can't they use a normal queue? I'm not going to go into details, right? I'm one of them. I can't deal with crowds. You'll see me on fairgrounds. You'll see me operating rides. There's probably some videos on this channel of me operating rides. There's probably pictures on Facebook and Instagram of me standing on ride platforms, right? I can't deal with crowds. If we take, for example, Nottingham Goose Fair, when it is busy, I cannot walk around that ground. Okay, I will struggle to leave a ride to go and get something to eat because it is way too busy. However, when I am looking after a ride or on a ride platform, my sole focus is the safety, running and operations of that ride and the customers on that ride and the area surrounding the ride to make sure everything is safe. So my brain doesn't even notice the masses of people around me. All it notices is that there's a ride platform or a ride area that I'm responsible for, that I need to make sure is safe at all times so that no incidents or accidents occurs. Right? And this is what people fail to understand. And this is just my example, so I can explain it in my own words. Everybody's different, but the basis is the same, right? People might say, well, if you can't deal with crowds, then why are you going to Alton Towers on a busy day? Surely you know there's going to be queues, blah, 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 lots of people. The reality is, for the majority of people, just to make it clear, if Alton Towers is really busy, I can't go. I didn't go to fireworks, not because I couldn't get RAP, but because I couldn't deal with the crowds, right? The reality is, for a lot of people, if there are a lot of people around, it can become overwhelming. But if you're not trapped in anywhere and you can move or squeeze your way out of a crowd, then it's not too bad because you can try and find a quiet space. You can find somewhere maybe it's less busy. You can move to a different environment. If you are in a queue line that is busy, or even if it's not busy, but you have people that, you know, you queue, you get no personal space in those queues. Especially at Merlin, you know, you fenced in either side. A lot of fences now, you know, you can't even climb over to get out. You've got to push past loads of people to get out of queue, and then you've wasted your time. you're really struggling in the queue, if you have a mental breakdown or a panic attack in the queue, the amount of funny looks you'll get, and no disrespect to the general public, and even to people with disabilities, because everybody still bloody judges, don't they, right? The reality is, you get judged more in a normal queue, right? Which makes it worse. So if you are having a panic attack, you get looked at funny, and it's even worse. If you're in a ride access queue, people are more understanding. You get more personal space. If you need to breathe or you need to ask someone to take a step further backwards because you need some more space, the chances are they will. And if they don't, then as far as I'm concerned, they're a bit of an arsehole for it. And if it's because someone's got no spatial awareness, then the chances are they're going to have someone accompanying them that does, so they can help move them back, you know? Treat others as you would like to be treated, is how I see it. Moving on from that, the website then says how and when did we make these changes. It says the changes have been running as a live trial in one form or another for over 2 years. Last year, we also began rolling out the clarified new symbols to existing accounts. While all supporting evidence is destroyed 3 months after a decision is made in line with our privacy policy, the application details themselves are retained for the lifetime of the account, plus a further 3 months. This allows us to make accurate updates to accounts as and when required. We introduced a manual review process for responses in the standing and queuing section, which was already evidenced. Using this information, we applied qualitative assessment to identify the underlying barrier affecting standing and queuing, whether this is related to difficulties being in crowds or to the physical act of standing itself. In all cases, the original standing and queuing symbol continues to be passed to providers and remains valid on existing cards. The new symbols will be applied when a card is next reprinted or renewed. Our sole aim is to accurately reflect our customers' access requirements, enabling providers to make informed decisions about how best to offer support. Now, again, I'd just like to read out that it says difficulty with crowds, symbol, a group of figures. What it means. This symbol is allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. Right? Merlin know this information. Right? They've partnered with Nimbus to use Nimbus' system. Now, Nimbus is a nationwide system. It might even be globally, I'm not sure. But certainly in the UK, it's a very well-known system. If you go on most websites, including the Ride Access Pass for Merlin now, you put in your name, you put in your access card ID, and it brings up what you qualify for, which is really useful because if you need to book a carer ticket with any other company or whatever, it's dead simple. You just get your access card out. I've got a note of my access card on my phone, so I put in my name, put in my access card, and straight away, whoever I'm trying to book a carer's ticket for or assistance with anything, straight away it comes back, it goes, yep, we see you're eligible, right? And they will take the difficulty with crowd symbol, meaning that I have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. So therefore, if a lot of queuing is involved, such as somewhere like a theme park, they will help me with a queuing system. Much like Merlin used to have the Ride Access Pass, which they still do have, but now a hell of a lot of people can't get. Alright, so therefore, Merlin is choosing to ignore Nimbus Disability's advice and guidance, who I believe they originally brought in to help them with the situation. And the next paragraph on the Nimbus access card website says, my allocated symbols are incorrect. How can I change them? And just to remind everybody, I've not actually looked at this yet. I am going through this at the same time I'm reading it to you. Okay? For those who applied under the old standing and queuing section, we reviewed the information you provided in this original application. Based on the details applicants told us about in relation to their specific barriers, we automatically updated the digital record to reflect the specific symbols that match their needs. If you applied under the new symbols application process, your account will already correctly reflect the information provided in symbol allocation. If you have any questions or feel that the updated symbol doesn't accurately reflect your needs, please contact our team by emailing us at symbols@nimbusdisability.com. We will require additional information to amend symbol allocation, which may include asking for further documentation. Alright. Again, I knew my access card was up for renewal in March, and I found out that meant I could renew it in January. So I renewed it in January before I actively knew about all these new symbols. I believe I found out about the new symbols when I was filling in the application. Now, when it comes to renewing or updating your card, if you just wish for it to be updated, I believe you can just email the evidence over and you can say, this is the evidence, this is what I would like updating. And they will do that. If you want a new card sending out, I think they'll charge you a £5 to cover printing and postage, right? But it's done. But if you don't want a new card, it'll just be updated on the system. So if you electronically use it, for example, for Merlin's Ride Access System app, it will be updated. Now, when it comes to renewals, this is where I personally found it complicated, because it said if nothing has changed, then it's simple to renew. You can just click renew. However, when you click renew, I believe there was two options. One said nothing's changed, one said I need to make changes. Now, it doesn't matter which one you press, you have to refill in the whole application. So what I ended up doing, because I ended up getting overwhelmed by it, I know, again, looking at me, you wouldn't think, well, how did he get overwhelmed filling a form? Right, I do, and that's the reality. A lot of disabilities are hidden, right, including mine. So what I ended up doing is, because I was getting overwhelmed and frustrated, I tick the bits I need, but where it puts in describe this, because originally it said you don't need to provide any more information, I left it blank. I put in a full stop so it allowed me to continue to the next page. And for every symbol that I required, that's what I did. And then when it sends send in evidence, I press a button to say send in later, thinking, well, they've got the evidence that they had before, nothing has changed. And I thought that'd be the end of it. Paid the £15 for renewal. Yes, if you don't want a physical card and you just want to use it for Alton Towers or a specific place like Drayton Manor, you can have a free process. They'll give you a number which you can put in, but I believe that's only valid for that one place. I highly recommend spending the £15. If you don't qualify for an access card, they'll refund you the £15, right? But if you're applying, then you should qualify anyway, right? But this £15 makes your life so much easier. 99% of the places I go now accept the access card as proof, right? I don't have to take in any PIP letters. I don't have to take in any doctor's note. So the venues don't need to know what's wrong with me. They see the access card, they see the symbol, and if I say, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details on the symbols I've got on my card, but I can show that card, and if I have a genuine need for what I'm asking for, I can show that card, and 99% of places recognise it and go, yep, not a problem. We can sort that for you. We can help you with this. And a lot of places like you using the access card because they don't have to read for anything. A lot of places, for example, if you get PIP, they go, okay, you get PIP, so we'll, give you a +1. Whereas, I'm not saying this is the case, but there might be some situations where you qualify for PIP, but then you don't actually need a carer. Well, I'm not saying that is or isn't the case, I'm just trying to make examples here, but it saves staff having to read through paperwork to check if you're eligible for stuff or not. You show them this card, a lot of places now you don't even need to show them the card. If you book, like I said, if you book online, they'll ask you to put in your name and your access card number, and that'll verify everything they need to know. You put in that, and the next page will say, right, we can help you with X, Y, and Z, and you know straight away what you're getting. If you walk up to places on the day, you just show them and they'll go, yep, that's fine, or they'll put your number in their system. All right? But, it's not just theme parks that you can use it at. I use it, I use it for everywhere I go. Right, the next paragraph says, I'm no longer eligible for RAP. Changes to the RAP eligibility framework and how they use the symbols on the access card or digital access pass, DAP, which is, I believe, if you don't pay the £15, that's what Alton Towers use. I think Alton Towers now call it DAP, digital access pass, instead of RAP. I'm not entirely sure. Right, so Changes to the RAP eligibility framework and how they use the symbols on the access card or digital access pass have been considered by Merlin Entertainment as part of their reasonable adjustments. Nimbus and the access card scheme have always been responsible for understanding, validating, and conveying the barriers you face, and it's down to those individual businesses to put in place reasonable adjustments to support you. As it stands, Nimbus is not aware of what this means in practice, and we will update this article accordingly. Alright, now how I personally read this is Nimbus has said, yes, we've changed the symbols on our card. We've also said that if your card says you struggle with a crowd, then, you'll be struggling with queues. And we've told Merlin this, and Merlin have chosen not to use this symbol. That's how I personally read it, okay? As I say, you go to other places that aren't Merlin owned, you'll still get, well, not ride access because everywhere calls it different, but you go to Pleasure Beach, you'll still be eligible for their system. You go to Straight Manor, you'll still be eligible for whatever their system is, right? This is just Merlin making an excuse saying, well, Nimbus have changed the system, so you no longer qualify. No, it's not because Nimbus have changed the system that you no longer qualify. It's because Merlin have been looking for a way to reduce the allocations, reduce who can get in, because they had so many people. And I'm not saying that everybody's eligible, everybody's not eligible, right? It's down to Nimbus to decide. I know from when I got my first Nimbus card and my renewal, I had to send off evidence. And coming back to that, I got an email back from Nimbus saying because my evidence was over 2 years, I hadn't supplied any evidence. So I sent them the original letter. And they then messaged me back and said it's over 2 years old, so we can't use it. So I had to get a new letter from the doctors explaining my needs. And then that was fine. That was the end of it done. But when you renew, you do have to fill in everything. I just put in full stops, but you will need to send off evidence again. Do that, you'll be done, hunky-dory, right? But coming back to what I was just saying, Merlin have decided to use Nimbus as a scapegoat for not providing ride access pass to you. Okay? Merlin, not Nimbus, right? Whether you agree with Nimbus splitting the symbols or not and how they've done it is irrelevant. My feelings on that are, I didn't know until I went to renew my card. I personally think it's a good thing, but it should have been made known to users prior. If it was, I wasn't aware, right? Saying what you will now get, and if you felt any different, then email them with evidence. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying that is what should have happened, what didn't happen. That is just my personal opinion, right? But what is fact is that Nimbus have changed it. If you had the original symbol, I'm 99.99999% sure you will still have the struggles with crowd symbol. Which means, and I quote again, the symbol is allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. Okay? Crowded situations or queues. It says it right there. Queues. And Merlin are saying, black and white, that it is Nimbus's fault that you no longer qualify because you have told Nimbus what you struggle with and Nimbus have deemed that you don't qualify for ride access. No, that is wrong. Nimbus still say you qualify for ride access. Nimbus stay black and white on their website. This symbol is allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues, often due to neurodivergence, anxiety, or other non-physical conditions. Yeah, it clearly says allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. Right? It says it. So if you've got difficulty with crowds on your card, listing on your thing, you should, as far as I'm aware, qualify for a Merlin ride access pass. Right? You should qualify for RAP. They say themselves, difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. Right? It is Merlin who have decided to ignore that, but then Merlin are turning around and saying, well, if you need your symbols changing, you need to speak to Nimbus because you've told Nimbus what you need and Nimbus have said that you don't need ride access. Wrong. Nimbus and the access card have not said you do not need ride access. They have said you have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. They've said there. queues. Yeah, crowded situations or queues. Therefore, you should have help in a flipping queue. Yeah, it's not rocket science, is it? It's like Merlin think everybody's an idiot and they're just saying, well, difficulty with crowds. You don't have you've got difficulty with crowds but not queuing, therefore you don't get right access. I'm pretty sure Merlin will be fully aware of what the wording says on the Nimbus website. I mean, they surely act like they don't know what they're doing, but, I'm pretty sure they do know what they're doing. Right? So Merlin should still be allowing you to book ride access. Right? As far as I'm concerned, that is fact. Nimbus, rightly or wrongly, have changed symbols. That's a matter of opinion. But what isn't a matter of opinion is that Merlin are saying that the difficulty with crowd symbols does not grant you ride access. That is wrong. That's not just my opinion. Yeah? As far as I guess technically it is, but as far as I'm concerned, that is wrong. I assume legally where they stand is fine, because surely they're not stupid enough to do stuff without checking, right? But the very company they brought on to help them assess who needs assistance and who doesn't need assistance, they are now turning around and saying, well, this company says you no longer need assistance, which is complete and utter bull. It clearly says you do need assistance, you need assistance with queuing. But Merlin are saying you don't need assistance with queuing, Nimbus are saying you don't need assistance with queuing, right? And then loads of people are going to Nimbus and moaning at Nimbus. I can only assume moaning at Nimbus or kicking off at Nimbus, right? Yeah, Nimbus might have been in wrong for changing the symbols, but I guarantee you've still got difficulty with crowds. If you've still got difficulty with crowds, you go to anywhere else that accepts the Nimbus access card as proof of disability. Yeah, I can almost guarantee you won't have a problem with the queuing section. Drayton Manor, I know you won't have a problem with the queuing section. Alton Park, I know you won't have a problem with the queuing section, yeah? Because I've looked. But Merlin, so Legoland, Thorpe Park, Chessington, Alton Towers, they're saying that you're not eligible for a ride access pass. That is purely Merlin's decision, right? If you go to a Merlin theme park, and you had a ride access pass and they say it's no longer valid, please, please, please do not kick off at the staff, right? Well, they're probably not paid enough as it is. They're probably on minimum wage, right? Or not long above it. They've got to deal with public all day. They're going to be dealing with people in the main queue moaning that there's people in a ride access queue. There's going to be people in a ride access queue moaning that they've been waiting for ages when the whole idea is it's a virtual queue. That's another topic. And to be honest, I don't agree with how Alton Towers do it. If you're in a ride access queue, you wait your virtual time, you should be let straight in. I was at Blackpool for the last day of the season. The big one, the queue was going down very slowly, but they only had one train on the track, right? They had one train, but they were doing like a train of normal, a train of like ride access. So it did move, but very slow. But that's because the ride was slow, and that was only bearable because I was with other people that were in the same situation, so they could see you were getting overwhelmed. Everybody would sort of try and calm each other down. And then the roller coaster that's over water, is it Fusion or Infusion or something? When I went to the ride access entrance there was one person in the queue who had been waiting a couple of minutes, but the Blackpool let you sit where you like, and there was a young girl there with her mother, and the young girl really wanted to sit on the front. And the ride host had said, okay, not a problem, you can sit at the front, but would you mind waiting for it to go around a few times first? Just because obviously there's people that have queued, and then there's people that have queued again for the front row. And, the mother said, yeah, no, we understand that. It's just, really struggles, with being around a lot, in a queue of a lot of other people. Like, we can wait, that's fine. And then I got there, and about 5 minutes later, there was a queue, almost a train full of people. And, the ride host came out every ride and said, I apologise for the wait, we will get you on soon, we're aware, blah, 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 blah. And then it came to a point, like I say, there was nearly a train full of people waiting. So in fairness, it wasn't a massive queue, it was like 3/4 of a train full. And the ride host came out to us and said, right, what we're going to do next is when the train comes back in, we're going to stop everybody from getting on, let them get off, and then everybody in this queue, there's enough seats on this train to get everybody in this queue. So then they got rid of the whole queue. So yes, I was waiting definitely no longer than 10 minutes, right? But everybody was in the same vote, so it wasn't an issue. And what the ride operator decided to do was, rather than bitting and bobbing, because it wouldn't be fair, would it, if you had this little girl waiting for the front row and then you're letting people on, behind her. They just went, right, what we'll do, we'll just do this train dedicated to ride access. And then that clears the queue. Job done. Anyway, moving back on to Merlin, I have no idea what I was saying. Merlin have screwed up, right? I'm pretty sure they're not breaking any laws, because they've got to be smart enough not to do that. They're smart enough to probably tell you that if you message them that you can purchase FastTrack. But then that won't work. There's another thing. I would like to hear your opinions on merging FastTrack and ride access. Because, in my opinion, it doesn't work. I don't know about a lot of other places, but I know with Merlin especially, they've started mixing ride access with FastTrack into like a merge point. Right? I know Legoland's done this for a while, but my opinion is, if you've got, to be fair, it shouldn't really make a difference. If you've brought FastTrack, which I think is wrong, but if you brought FastTrack or your ride access, you are entitled, and I say entitled, my belief is you're entitled to get on that ride at point of entry, right? If your FastTrack or your ride access pass says, right, you can now go on this ride, you should be able to walk on that ride. Even if there's a queue for FastTrack or a queue for ride access, you should then become priority. And I know it'll really annoy the main queue, or you should at least feel like half a car, but it should be managed better. Not like we'll have 4 people from this and then the rest is. Right, the queues should be kept to a minimum. A lot of the point of ride access is a lot of people can't stand for a long time. They can't deal with queuing because they can't be dealing with being stuck around a lot of people. And even if you're in a queue with people that are in a similar situation, so they understand you, they give you the space, you're still penned into a queue. Yes, you can leave easier, but you're still penned into the queue, and the whole experience is supposed to be, you walk up that line, you get on the ride, then you get off, and you wait in to be able to go on your next ride. But instead of being in the queue, you can start to self-regulate if you need to, or you can take yourself somewhere quiet and then go to the busy area when you can get on. Alright? Again, I've gone completely off track. Right, the next paragraph on this page on the access card website says, how do I find my ideal symbols? In order to connect your access card or Merlin Digital Access Pass to the RAP app, you will need your ID. If you have forgotten this, the easiest way is to search your emails for access card or Merlin Digital Access Pass to find your confirmation email. If you can't find your confirmation email, then you can complete this form, and then it gives a link, which will check if your application is live and details match. If this is correct, you will receive an email confirming your ID number and symbols. Please keep an eye on all mailboxes, including spam or junk folders. Now, I'd just like to say, I used this link firstly for research purposes, because I just was curious if it was an automatic thing or not. And then I had a family member ring me up and say, well, we can't go to any Merlin parks this year because we no longer get ride access. So I got them to check, and it is instant. All you do is you put in your name, and then you either put in your telephone number that's registered to the account, or an email address that's registered to the account, or your postcode that's registered to the account. You click the button, and straight away it'll find you, and you go straight on your emails, you'll have an email from them. It's not like you're taking up someone's time in the office to search for it, it's all automatic. So if you're not sure what you've got, and you're not sure of your access number, 100% use it. I'll put the link in the description below. I'll also put the link in the description below to this FAQ page that I'm on. And the last paragraph says, I disagree with the changes to RAP eligibility. And it says, Nimbus and the Access Card Scheme have always been responsible for understanding, validating and conveying the barriers you face. This is the important one, we have no control over the reasonable adjustments offered. Any comments with respect to these changes to RAP eligibility need to be conveyed to Merlin Entertainments directly. And they do. Don't let Merlin Entertainments tell you that you need to get your symbols changed with Nimbus and the access card because the access card is saying that you no longer qualify. According to the access card and Nimbus Disability, you should still qualify for RAP. You should still qualify for ride access. You qualify for Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Thorpe Park, any other theme park in the UK. You will qualify for ride access still. It is just Merlin Entertainments. Again, one of the first sentences I read you. Difficulty with crowds. Symbol, a group of figures. What it means. This symbol is allocated to applicants who have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues, often due to neurodivergence, anxiety or other non-physical conditions. This tells me, in my personal opinion, that if you don't have a physical condition, Merlin are not classing you as needing reasonable adjustments. Now, I'm no expert on the Disability Act. I couldn't even tell you what year it came into place. But as far as I'm aware, this is discrimination. Right? It's separating physical and non-physical conditions. If you've got a physical condition, they will let you use the ride access system. If you have a non-physical condition, you still have a condition. It still affects you. Right? It still affects you being in a crowd. It still affects you being in a queue. Right? But Merlin are saying, we are not helping you. We do not see this as a disability that needs assistance queuing. And I believe what Merlin will probably end up saying is, well, if you've got a +1, your +1 can help you in the queue. Yeah? Merlin is just so out of touch. You know, I don't know what the flipping heck's going on. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will try and remember to link everything below so that you can check what I've said. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments, both from people that use ride access, that don't use ride access. I didn't visit Merlin Parks a lot last year. I didn't have a Merlin annual pass last year because the previous year, to be honest with you, I couldn't book any RAP slots, so I couldn't go. I can't book months in advance to say, right, I'm going to go to Alton Towers or Thorpe Park on this day. Yeah, it don't work. It's like, you know, the day before I'll go, right, okay, tomorrow I'm going to try and go to this place. And that's what happens. That's why my channel is Randomness of JP. I can plan stuff in advance, but then I have to mentally prepare forever and a day to, you know, to be able to do it. And I still have to be feeling up to it on the day. So I try and not plan really the day a couple of days before, which in Merlin's case usually means you can't get a ride access. And the days I have been, I think I got ride access once and another day I didn't, but because it wasn't a busy day, the park was that quiet, I could manage the queues. The only one I struggled with was Nemesis, because although it was walk-on, the queue line's absolutely bloody massive and hilly, although there was like no one else in the queue, so you weren't penned in or in a crowd, you know, for me, you're still fenced in either side. You can either go forwards or you can go backwards, but to me it still feels claustrophobic and I struggle with it. And on that note, I can no longer go on the Smiler because you can't see how big the ride access queue is until you're in it. And where the ride access queue is, it's in that overload sensory bit that's got all the noise and the things going on. And I understand that is part of the Smiler's theming. Do not get me wrong. And if I was only there for a few minutes before going up onto the stairs, I would, you know, I'd be fine. But being held there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, even, I mean, let's be realistic. If you've got a ride access pass and you've been on the Smiler, you know, if I say, you know, you could be waiting in that queue for an hour, you know that I'm not lying. So how is that access to rides, you know? It's not. Another one is the Wicker Man. I really, really, really enjoy the Wicker Man. However, the pre-show and waiting for the pre-show, I genuinely struggle with, because They ram over. You'll hear them before the pre-show. Move up, squeeze in, move up, fill in the space. The one in your pre-show, fill in the space, and you're trapped. And Alton Towers now say, well, you can skip the pre-show. But to skip the pre-show, you still have to be in the pre-show room where they squash you all in. And then when you get to the pre-show, you have to tell the host that you can't or don't want to do the pre-show. And then they hold you at the front of the pre-show doors. So you have to wait for that pre-show to go. So then you've still got people pushing behind you. And in fact, often they call you to the side. So then when the pre-show's finished and everybody goes into the queue and then the doors open for the pre-show for the next lot, everybody's trying to push in, but you're at the side and then the ride host is telling you to go in, or the ride host will tell people to wait, and then you look like an idiot because they're telling everybody to wait and are escorting you through. So it makes it look like you've skipped a bit to get on the ride when you've not. You just can't be, you've struggled being in a room squashed in with loads of people. You can't deal with it being in a second room, again, squashed in full of people. But I don't know what the solution is there, right? But for me, I really love the Wicker Man. But I can't, if it's busy, I can't go on it because I can't be squashed up. And people are going to say I'm wrong for this. Some people are going to agree. Some people are going to understand, and some people can't. But I don't go on the Wicker Man now because if I'm either in the pre-show or the room before the pre-show where you put your bags and people squash right up to me, I will physically push them out the way. Not harshly, but I will put my arms out and I'll give a gentle nudge. And then that causes arguments and all sorts of stuff. But they don't understand that you need space. The ride hosts don't seem to understand that you need space because even if you say you need to skip the pre-show, they'll go, okay, stand here to the side, but then they're still squashing everybody up. So you're still pinned against the wall. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't work. And I can't comment on other theme parks. Last year, I only went to Alton Towers and I went to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And Blackpool Pleasure Beach wasn't perfect, but it was the end of season and they had like one train on the track. And in fairness, they were doing the best they can. And even with Blackpool Pleasure Beach, they will put you into a merge point closest to the ride. Definitely on Icon and the big one, that's what they do. But because they turn the rides around so bloody quick, you're constantly moving anyway. So yes, you might be squashed in, but you're moving. So you've not got space. When people in front of you move, you can stay where you are or take half a step forward. It's not as bad. I feel like the Blackpool system mostly works. What doesn't work for me with Blackpool is a lot of rides you'll go on the exit and they'll tell you to sit wherever you want, which is great, but then I feel like an idiot because the queue might be full of people waiting to get on the train, and you might have, say, a group of 4, and I've gone and sat somewhere, which now means I've filled up that group of 4. So that group of 4 that will wait and sit with each other, then they'll get to sit with each other. Or they'll then wait for the next train, which is fine, but then that holds up their queue more. I'd rather they have like a set seat or tell me where to sit. But, it is good that you get to choose. Anyway, back to Merlin. Email Merlin. I don't have the email addresses. Look on Facebook. Everybody's complaining. Everybody's moaning. But a lot of people are saying the same thing. Well, Nimbus didn't tell me that my symbol was changing. No, Nimbus might have not told you that the symbol was changing, but you've actively put that you've got on your card difficulty with crowds. So therefore, it's Merlin's problem, not Nimbus's problem. Nimbus might have not dealt with it correctly in the first place with splitting them, but it is Merlin that are now telling you can't have ride access. It is not Nimbus. Nimbus are telling you should have ride access. Nimbus are advising whoever uses their systems that you probably have difficulty being in crowded situations or queues. Nimbus are basically going, right, Merlin Entertainments, this difficulty with crowd symbol, what this means is these people are going to struggle in crowded situations or queues. So Merlin have gone, okay, thanks for that information. Right, we're not letting you have ride access. We know that you're struggling in crowded situations and queues, but you can go and queue in a normal queue. And, if they say, well, don't come on a crowded day, come on an off-peak day, well, that's all right. But a lot of people can't necessarily choose what days are gone, People with the disabilities may or may not be working, but during the week, the theme park's open like 10 till 4, so you don't get that long in there anyway to enjoy like a full day. But people that work or carers or people that accompany you, they've got to be free to be able to take you and assist you. So if they're taking you and assisting you, the chances are they can only go when it's busier. So it's Merlin, if you're watching this, you friggin' arseholes. Like, what the bloody hell have you done? Just change it back, just so you can get RAP. I agree, right? As I said earlier, I barely went to a Merlin theme park last season. I didn't have a Merlin annual pass last season because I did the season before and I couldn't book any ride access for any days that I wanted to go, right? So as a result, I've not renewed my thing. Is that on me? Is that on Merlin? Whatever, it's irrelevant. For me, it doesn't work. And for me, you know, if it's a busy day and I had ride access, but the ride access is still busy, then I still can't go because I then can't use the ride access queues. So I don't know what the solution is, right? But this is not it. And feel free to comment saying, why are you saying this but you don't have the solution? I don't. But Blackpool, you know, alright, I went Blackpool Pleasure Beach once. But my experience with Blackpool is they dealt with it. It wasn't necessarily a ram day at the park, but some of the, you know, like the big one, the ride access queue was quite big for the big one because they only had one train going round. But they dealt with it. You know, they dealt with it. But please, if you're going to a Merlin theme park and you have a problem with ride access, the system not being able to get an allocation, not being qualified according to Merlin anymore to be able to use the system, please do not have a go at the staff. They're not paid enough, and there's no way that that person in guest services that you start having an argument with, there's no way that that person has had any influence at all in the decision on who does and doesn't qualify for RAP. Much like when we couldn't get a RAP booking and people were going to guest services and saying, oh, I booked this months ago, you know, I should be able to have a RAP, rah, rah, rah. It's not their fault, right? It is not their fault. And whilst I do believe that guest services should have more control to be able to offer more solutions, it comes down to corporate, doesn't it? It comes down to Merlin and their decisions. Yeah? It ultimately does. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please make sure if this video's been of any use, please give it a like, give it a share. Please subscribe to the channel. Don't worry about turning on notification bells. It'd just be nice to have some subscribers. I might actually start posting stuff again then. But you know, again, it's randomness of JP. It's as and when I go out. Often I'll take photos when I'm out and about. So you know, give us a follow on Facebook and or Instagram. Randomness of JP. The same logo is on here. It will be changing soon, but it's the same logo. Just give us a follow. Give us a like. It doesn't cost anything. Let's try and spread some more messages to Merlin that they've been complete and utter pricks, you know, in this instance, and it's got to change. Thank you ever so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever time this may be. Until the next one, good luck with Merlin. Boycott them, go to other parks.